Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Some of us had a chance to hear a very interesting discussion at 11 o'clock about this book, Tu jest sztuka. It's a history of the Polish art scene, and we witnessed a discussion of some galleries here talking about the history and the significance of the event and of the scene in Poland, as well as some of the expectations towards the future. And what I was hoping we can talk about today is, first of all, to see Warsaw Gallery Weekend through the eyes of fantastic foreign visitors we have here that I'm going to introduce in a minute. And I was also hoping we'll be able to cover some possible future scenarios and reflect a little bit of what Warsaw Gallery Weekend could be in a couple of years. And so before we start, I think it would be really great if our guests will introduce themselves and tell us a little bit of who they are and where they are here. And to my right, Ingi Lace, curator from Riga, but also affiliated with Museum of Modern Art in New York. Could you please tell us a little bit of...
Yeah, sure. Hi. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Camila, and so nice to see everyone here. And thanks for inviting me actually to this gallery weekend. It's my first gallery weekend, so I'm like happy to see everything that happens. And so indeed, I'm a curator based in Riga and have been working at the Latvian Center for Contemporary Art for almost 10 years, which is an NGO in Riga, in Latvia, dealing with research and production of new works, production of Survival Kit Contemporary Art Festival, and other also kind of museum-based, research-based shows, as well as, since last year, I'm a CMA program fellow of Central and Eastern Europe at MoMA, Museum Art in New York. And just to tell a little bit about this CMA program, so it's part of the international research program that MoMA has already for 10 years, with this intention to learn to understand the regions, let's say, outside of mostly Western Europe and Northern America, but also outside of their reach somehow, where they felt that they don't have this expertise within the team, which of course is also could be seen as diverse. And those regions are Central Eastern Europe, it's also Asia, Latin America, and now it's also Africa. And of course it sounds really broad, but for instance, for the Central Eastern Europe, in those 10 years, they have looked at fluxus, collection, and that's how they kind of, would work with the or look into the artists like George Maciunas, who is Lithuanian. Then they would also look at former Yugoslavia or do significant research on Russia, then Central Europe, Poland. And when I started to work there this last year, focus was the Baltic countries of like Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. And next year it's Georgia, so like looking at the South Caucasus. And anyway, so my task in that sense is to be in the region and to provide them with that knowledge of the region through connecting them with specialists, with artists. So we've been doing a lot of Zoom studio visits, Zoom meetings. I mean, obviously because of the pandemic. Before, it would be more like this trip that you do, that those people from the region, they go to New York and they introduce their practices. And then people from MoMA, and the program is cross-departmental, so it's everyone like from painting to architecture, and they come to the region, they come in that visit. And this idea of that whole research that is done before is, and have that local fellow like me, who is from the region, is to not to repeat this structure of like them going shopping, meaning acquiring some pieces, and then never coming back or never engaging with the artist. So the idea would be to maybe first learn about the context, also perhaps engage with these artists like in different ways, like maybe you have a screening with an artist or something, and only then you kind of acquire the work. Yeah, so that's in short about my current occupations.
Thank you so much. So you will have a great insight, and perhaps you can give us some interesting example from within the region, or maybe we can also have a chance to define a little bit what the region really is, because we meet here as part of the Central European Collectors Summit. So that's the idea that is also exemplification, maybe exemplification of perhaps some aspirations of what Warsaw Gallery Weekend could be, and we'll talk about it, I hope. Michała Lasoty, next to my right,
Hello.
is representing the local scene and will be supporting me in perhaps finding some answers or bringing up some examples. Can you please tell us a little bit?
Hello, my name is Michała Lasoty. I'm running, along with my partner Osmana Djajadisastry, Stereo Gallery, right now in Warsaw, but the gallery moved from Poznań, so I find myself also as a foreigner a bit in Warsaw and in this great group of people. Yeah, and that's it. I will try to put some points about the Warsaw Gallery Weekend and also about ideas what lacks. What Warsaw Gallery Weekend lacks of, and maybe how we can improve the event. That's my position, I think, for now.
Okay, and we'll also have a collector voice in our discussion. Osman.
Be careful. My name is Osmana Djajadisastry. I help
Djajadisastry.
I help you. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm a collector of art from Poland since 35 years. Coming from Germany and the western part of Germany. It's my 11th, compared to you, 11th Warsaw Gallery Weekend, and compared to you, I'm the real foreigner. I collect Polish art from Poland since this long time, and it's like, I think, a huge amount of art which needs to be known and to get some background information. And I suppose this journey never ends, unfortunately, for the financial background of my family, because I spent almost everything in art. So I hope they are not too angry about this.
Can you please very briefly tell us what made you collect Polish art to start with?
Okay, probably this is a different story compared to many other collectors, because I had the background that my parents or mother introduced me into art. This was the first contact with art, and in the last year of our school, there's always traveling to other countries, like probably in Poland as well nowadays. And we chose, or our history teacher chose Poland. It was in the year of 1981, which is a very crucial year for this country. And this was my first trip to Poland. And we made a journey through Wrocław, Krakow, Warsaw, and Gdansk. And this had a very huge impact on us as a 18 years old, first time behind the Iron Curtain, and in a country which was totally unknown to us. And I think it made such an impact on myself that I wanted always to come back, which after 1981, the 13th December, wasn't so easy. In my study, I got known to a person from Poland, and then we started to travel to Poland since '84, so it's almost a long time. And in this process of going to Poland, I discovered art from Poland or in Poland. And so the collection started in the mid-'80s, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So we are, it's a third day of Warsaw Gallery Weekend. I've seen 32 shows. I don't know if anyone can compete with that. Almost all of them. I only haven't been to Dawid Radziszewski. I'm going to do it tomorrow. Listening to Adam and our colleagues before, I've heard some bold statements. For example, Adam said that what's going on here in Warsaw in terms of the gallery scene is really exceptional. So can you somehow share with us your impressions from those 2 days? You've seen some shows, or maybe can you tell us a little bit what's characteristic for us as a scene, and please don't spare us some constructive criticism as well. So let's not praise only. I don't know who wants to start.
No, of course, yeah. No, I'm actually curious why, or what was behind Adam's statement that it's
He's
exceptional.
here, he can maybe tell us, but
okay, but maybe that would kind of influence my view. And I mean, no, but of course, I've been kind of coming to Poland quite often because it is the region, and I think there was this kind of a couple of years ago, or maybe 5-7 years ago, when I would start to come kind of more often as a curator. Then I would hear about this. Oh, there's like really a boom of galleries. There's really something is happening, and there are like a lot of galleries established by young people and run by young people, and that was like, okay, wow, that there is some kind of shift or something. Like that was my feeling from the Baltics, because there in the Baltics, there's maybe one strong gallery, which is in Estonia, the Temnikova Castle Gallery, run by Olga Temnikova, and then other than that, there is a lot of like, more kind of older galleries that also whose practice is not very international, contemporary, and kind of like, that. And you don't see them in the fairs as you see, let's say, the Polish galleries. Anyway, so yeah, I would agree that it's really amazing to see how it grows and how it happens. But yeah, for me, this one question that I had, or that I was thinking about while going through galleries, is this question that I'm seeing a lot of like local artists that I don't see maybe somewhere else. So it's very Polish based, and I don't see like strong international presentations of international artists, which maybe is not necessarily that it's the case or that it has to be, or maybe it's not something that the galleries present for Gallery Weekend. Maybe they would do it at a different time.
We are not helping because we are awarding Polish artists only.
And that's why,
I don't know if that can influence their choice, but perhaps to a certain extent. But I guess it's not. It also, what I witnessed for years is that whenever the galleries were attempting and bringing artists, foreign artists, there was less, in most cases, less interest of a local public, and I hope it will be changing. And also maybe we want to hear and talk about what has to change so that they be more involved. But I don't know, Michał, if you agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. We are drifting away from Adam's statement.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
We will come back, Adam. Yes, at first the award, the prize you founded, shapes the program of Warsaw Gallery Weekend significantly. I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, that's true. But it's not the only reason why Warsaw Gallery Weekend has such a local spirit. I think it also relates to another statement you mentioned before our discussion began. It relates to the fact that the art market here is really local, and collectors from Poland are buying mainly Polish art, and this is what forces us a bit to focus on Polish artists.
I would agree with Michael. I think the Warsaw Gallery Weekend has to be local. It's my opinion, because in the last year, I think they developed a strong collectors group. In the last years, it's growing, but mainly I would assume 90% are collecting Polish art and not foreign art. So that's why I think that the Warsaw Gallery Weekend, which is the main event for the art scene, should focus on the strong artists from Poland. Maybe after a few years, after you establish some kind of secureness in the collectors or some kind of more knowledge, they turn to foreign artists. But I think they feel much more secure at the first step. If you collect, you feel much more secure with the things you probably have already known from not school but university, when you first probably go to museums, and this is the first step, and you feel a bit more secure.
Yeah, just a comment from my side. I agree that strong artists from Poland, and it actually is important to nurture that scene and those artists, and to work with collectors in that way. But maybe I put this kind of comparison, local versus international, and maybe that's not such a productive one. Maybe we could talk about local versus regional, and not versus, but maybe how local can already be international. So, and that could be maybe, like one way how I see it, which already appears in that show, which we saw in which we just talked about before this discussion in Bureau Wystawa, where you see that international presence and that regional presence within the show in Bureau Wystawa, because there are artists who are Polish, but they're also coming from, or they're now based in Poland, but they're coming from Belarus, from Ukraine, or they have a Roma background. And somehow, how do you see that international or that regional already within the local, and how that can be more maybe stressed? So for me, that was an important point.
Yeah, I think you start with the local Polish scene, and then I think you can start to make the range wider, like from Eastern European countries you can take into this gallery weekend, or from Germany as well, as is done by one gallery, as I know. So it's the next step, I would say.
Yes, also, because just to continue, we don't have a gallery weekend, for instance, in Latvia, or like maybe there are other, and Warsaw is such a central place, like you should like really use it. It's like you come to Warsaw and you're like, whoa, look, you're like in New York, or you're like in Moscow, or like that. I mean, okay, we didn't travel this year too much, so like, so that's why we are like, I mean,
yeah, to add this, I think Thursday evening we met a German gallerist who should know art scenes, and he was coming for the first time since I think 10 years to Warsaw, and he was really like, am I on a different planet now? Because he wasn't aware. I think this is the second step after the first, to make art from Poland, in Poland, very well known, very established, and then you go the next step to make it known outside of Poland.
Okay, I agree, but it's the 11th edition as far as I remember. And you said that it's your 11th time here, so you must see some evolution, or perhaps there is no evolution.
I think there was in the middle, you had a lot of German collectors invited. Julia Stoschek, I think Boris was here, Schumann, and I think it failed. I have the impression it failed. It failed because these guys, I would call them guys or women, and these collectors probably have their own bubble in Germany. They collect there. They collect probably internationally, and to come to Warsaw was like an adventure, I would say. So you invest a lot of money for one-time adventure, and they're gone because they don't really dig deeper. They don't go into the subject. And so at the moment, I still think it's too early. It's too early to make the next step.
So, I mean, you answer one of the questions I wanted to ask, because I see some, and I'm very happy, Inga, that you seem to have a different opinion on that.
Yeah,
so
very
we
much.
can dig into that a little bit. Because what I was going to ask you is that perhaps this locality is a good thing. I mean, it's it looks. I mean, that the galleries seem to flourish. I mean, they have the spaces look better and better. There are new galleries. There are. There is that the public is growing. There are, I mean, it seems that the scene is really in a good shape. And I also, just to support Adam's bold statement, I've heard some comments, for example, from Linda and Daniela Dostalkowe, so artists from the Czech Republic, that they had a chance to see the galleries, and they shared that opinion. It all looks great. There are so many galleries, so many great spaces, and yeah, there is one more thing that I'll cover later. So I think Michał wants to say something.
Yeah. Thank you, Inga, for a perfect definition of what Warsaw Gallery Weekend should be and should aim for. I agree fully that the opposition of local and international is not useful anymore for us, and that we should think about building a local scene internationally. For a long period of time, I still have this confusion of what is a definition of Warsaw Gallery Weekend for its organizers, because I'm not, as a participant and not organizer, I don't know what is, the name is in English, right? But all, even this book, right, is in Polish. So and it's meaningful, I think. That I don't have an exact point right now, but I'm asking questions myself, and I'm an organizer along with my friends and colleagues of an event called Friend of a Friend, and it came up from the realization that Warsaw Gallery Weekend is local. So this event we have set up is international in a different way. We are inviting foreign galleries. They are guests of our spaces, and we are doing something similar, and which supplements the program of Warsaw Gallery Weekend for us. This is how I feel about it. That it's still not that Warsaw Gallery Weekend is still not international enough. But really, this is the ideal how we should think about Warsaw Gallery Weekend. Yeah, let's do it locally. Let's do local scene. Let's build local scene, but internationally. Yeah, but I don't have a solution how to do it. I don't have an idea.
Would it mean? But do you mean like that what should happen? Like, should we invite galleries from the region to be here, or the artists or the Polish galleries should represent foreign artists?
There was one case of this gallery. Svit from Prague was a participant of Warsaw Gallery Weekend, but it was only one time, just like a one-time adventure of German collectors visiting Warsaw Gallery Weekend. So the answer is no, we failed inviting people from, so I don't know, really. I don't know. We built Friend of a Friend doesn't even have a Polish website, right? But it was really, we were going point after point how we should do this event, how it should differ from Warsaw Gallery Weekend, right? That was really helpful for us. The flaws, how we have defined them, of Warsaw Gallery Weekend helped us to establish a new event, which is not, which is only a supplement for us. I don't. Please don't think I'm criticizing Warsaw Gallery Weekend in favor of Friend of a Friend. It just supplements Of course, not all of Warsaw galleries are taking part in Friend of a Friend. It's only 8 or 10, but this is how we decided.
I think it's a very good project to do this, but to be honest, is it successful? Not in the term that you reach people and give them education into international artists, but is it successful as a gallerist? Because it's a main point for sure. You have to survive.
Yes, yes, it's a successful event on some level. That we are making friends with foreign galleries. So the opportunity of individual show of Polish artists abroad grows. That was one of aims of this event.
Yeah, and then another thing, of course, one is to make these friends among the galleries, and another thing is to whether and how much of the artists from somewhere else do those galleries in Warsaw represent, because that could also be an option when you are, as a gallerist, interested in the region. Then, of course, you need to find your collector base that is also interested in an artist from Uzbekistan or from Riga or from, somewhere else, or Tallinn, or where maybe there are not so many galleries, or maybe there are, but you just want to really work regionally. And for me, that would seem like an interesting idea. But then again, I'm not a gallerist and I don't work with collectors directly. I'm more thinking as a curator, because again, I'm saying that I think Warsaw is this kind of, it has a potential of being this kind of hub where people search for art from the region, and that happens both in terms of curatorially or museum-wise, or it has the potential to happen that way, and then maybe also gallery-wise, collecting-wise.
So what you said is basically to facilitate cross-cultural circulation of art and artists. What's important is to show artists from abroad and make friendships with other galleries, and it works the other way around. But maybe we could focus also a little bit on collectors. What I've heard yesterday, there was a very interesting statement. Someone said that we have a great collectors base in Poland because they are very close to the artists, and that's something that is special here. But what I've heard today as well is what Dawid Radziszewski said, that for him the success of the Polish art scene will be when the Polish collectors will start buying abroad, being present at the art fairs, and that's what really need to be taken seriously. That's another strong statement. So how do you see the collector's role in that, and perhaps the gallery's role in enhancing or encouraging the collectors to make this next step, because it has to happen somehow?
I'm not probably I can't speak for all collectors, but I think it's a natural development. If a collector, for example, the collectors in Poland probably started last 20 years, I would assume. So it takes some time to really dig into the subject, to get comfortable with it, to get more knowledge. So I think that the typical collector is probably not me, but the typical collector will buy the first paintings and sculptures, because this is something he can really think he can judge, he can say it's okay, and they're mostly locally, because these are the guys he knows, and the artists he knows, and especially in Poland he's able to meet the artists very easily, either in the Warsaw Gallery Weekend or through galleries. The second step would be that he is getting more confident about his collection, and then he starts to look deeper into the subject, like buying, for instance, as in my case, conceptual art or performances. So you get more stable in your decisions and more really confident in what you're doing. And the third step would be to buy internationally. So I think it's a natural development, but in Poland it's still the second step, I would say, is first and second step. The collectors are still at the beginning.
So we just need to be patient, basically. We just need to be patient.
You need to be patient, yeah. as always, because this is a
And thank God we have Grażyna Kolczyk that's representing.
yeah. I wouldn't. Yeah, you have to be patient, but I'm not pessimistic about this. I'm very optimistic that it's going to be developing, because in the last year, as you said, the Warsaw Gallery Weekend got more professional. The spaces got better. Then the gallerists got more confident in what they did or do, because they survived all this time. So you get more. The basis of the network of collectors is growing, and I think you can be really confident about this brand Warsaw Gallery Weekend. And maybe in the future it will be the center of this eastern part of Europe, as a center, as not only showing then Polish artists, but artists from Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I hope so. But also, yeah, I'm like thinking that of course collectors they really they grow and they learn, and I guess there are different ideas or stories or narratives that they follow within their collection. So you are this example that is from Germany, but coming back and back, like so many times, and maybe there are other pathways that people follow, and that it's not again just simply international, but maybe you see some, like, because what we do in the curatorial field, we also don't try to like make just exhibitions of international art in Latvia, but we try to ground them within the local context. And what is the link? Like, why is this artist from India to be shown in Latvia? Because maybe there is something that happened historically, and it's more like like a method or like a tool that we use, like this museum or that research. And I'm wondering. And that's like this kind of an exercise for me, because how can you make your collection in that way that there are these interrelations that are very international perhaps, but they kind of maybe bring it back to the local, or they start with local and they go out, but not very randomly or just by the, I don't know, price or value of artists, but just by some story, I don't know, some friendships or some, I mean, they're always, I guess, personal stories and friendships, but I just wonder, or like alliances, I don't know, that were there in the history, and then you are like following some future alliances. So you think like, with whom do you want to be allied? I don't know. But then again, I'm not thinking like a collector.
I think the field of interest is, every collector has his certain personal field of interest. Some collect modern art, some collect the classical art, of art from the, in my case, art from the 80s mainly. But this is a really personal reason.
And you're collecting mainly Polish art, right? So it's just
99% Polish
exactly.
art.
So
99%. And it's really the personal reason, the personal story behind it, and then it developed that I got really stuck in the art between, I would say, 70 and 90, focused on the 80s.
Yeah, okay. I'll just explain my maybe very abstract meanderings in the topic with your example, for instance, that if you collect this art from Poland from the 80s and 90s, and then I think for me it would be interesting if, like, that when you decide, okay, now I want to collect something more international or regional, and then, for instance, thinking about, but there were these Polish artists at the time taking part in a festival in Narva in 1988, and then they met these artists from Kazakhstan and Latvia, and I mean, I'm referring to a certain festival, but I don't know if Polish artists took part, but that was some kind of event, very important for the former Soviet Union. And then you're like, okay, so maybe I'll see which Latvian artist was there, and that will be my first Latvian artist, because I see that there is this connection.
Maybe there is even a proof of influence between them.
Yeah.
Definitely, it could happen. It could happen, like with the German artist we've seen in the show, because she was doing her works in the time 82, 83. She was in jail, so there's a connection in the way she was treated in the DDR, same as in Poland.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is a little bit that, you know, somehow reveals from what you're saying is that there is a role for institutions as well. We don't have any institutional representative here. So maybe that's also an area that hasn't been explored in Poland enough, right? Our local institutions also seem to focus quite a lot on the local scene, Michał, right?
Building collections, you mean? Yeah, but Museum of Modern Art in Warsaw and Muzeum Sztuki in Łódź have really international collections. Yeah. Going back to what David said, I agree with him, but I don't think it's necessary. And I also think it's only I would agree with Osman that it's a matter of time, I think, and secureness and feeling secure with broadening the field of interest, and that's it. That's really nice fact that that Polish art market, even this local art market and locally defined, is doing so well. I'm really happy about it, and I agree with Adam that. Yeah, and I think we can agree, right now, all together, that Warsaw is exceptional. It's not only Warsaw art scene. It's not only when you compare it to Baltic countries, but also going southern, Czech Republic or Slovakia. They are all looking at Warsaw, right?
Yeah, I really liked your comment
Exactly.
about
Now
institutions, actually, and I totally kind of I back that up. Yeah, that because they are, I mean, they are participants of this. Yeah, also building a narrative about what Polish art is, and is it like very local, or is it more international? Is it transnational? Is it transregional? Like, what are we showing there? And then, yeah. Just to say that it's important. Part of the same ecosystem, just it's a different...
Okay, and another thing that I think we could maybe explore a little bit more when we are talking about the institutions is the role that the galleries may play in the future, given the institutions in some countries of the region are in more and more difficult, like, social political situation, and how do you see the future from that perspective? Tough question. I know.
It's a tough one. Yeah, the fact that the Warsaw Gallery Weekend is organized by private galleries and funded with the help of a foreign bank, I mean ING, is meaningful, but it also gives us an independence of public fundings. I don't know exactly how to think about public support. Of course, it would be helpful. I think actually I made a mistake, right? There is an financial input of Ministry of Culture this year in Warsaw Gallery Weekend, or at least past few years it was supported by the Ministry of Culture. Yeah, but it doesn't look good, to be honest, for the future. So, but maybe it will help us to think about this project defined by Inga, how to do a local art event international, how to make it international without any support of a government and just a side of it.
Optimistic about the institutions. No, I'm not the right person to say something optimistic about this. I think there's probably the new museum will help, the new building. No, I'm not the right person. I think there's a change in directorship now here.
Here in Sahand.
Yeah, and so we will see. We will see. That's the most optimistic to say. We will see.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, it's not very optimistic perhaps, but for instance, good news was the representation of Gosia Mirgetas in the Venice Biennial of Polish Pavilion for the next year. And that news came, that's a more kind of institutional agreement because it's all the institution directors who are making that decision, which is, I think, a very important, progressive, beautiful, because it's the first Roma artist, I guess, whereas Roma population is like in so much of Europe, and then there's no representation apart from in the Roma Pavilion, which is a specific institution that also does represent Roma art in Venice. And then going back to this Bureau Vistava exhibition, where you would have Małgorzata Mirgetas' work, then somehow it seems that there is these beautiful connections that weave through, let's say, the gallery weekend, the galleries, and perhaps also institutional representation, and also her work is also like shown internationally in the biennials. I think I saw it twice at least this summer because I was in Autostrada Biennial in Kosovo, and so I see it all as very much interrelated, like how galleries are these allies of the artists and they are helping, but then there are these other international events where the artists also have to take part and where maybe more institutions and curators can help for that to actually form this very healthy ecosystem. Because just to decide that this weekend will be local and focus on Polish artists, it's not gonna help. It seems more like a protective position, like you really, and especially for you and for many countries in the Eastern Europe where we have all these exclusive nationalist tendencies, authoritarian tendencies, it's just, it seems counterproductive to focus on local and national, and it seems like a task to like really think how to defy those borders, how to go outside of those borders, at least in your art projects. And then again, that's a very curatorial thought of me.
Definitely, I agree. But they have to survive. So that's the point. We can talk about this very nice view we have, and it's probably at the moment I would say idealistic, because they can survive if they do this. They wouldn't sell. So that's the main point. So they have first to build the local, which is growing really good, I think, establish the local collector scene and the local art scene, establish more and more, and then you can do the next step.
Okay, so we seem to have two opinions. One is evolution, the other one is revolution. And so we'll see where it will lead us, but perhaps it's a moment for some questions from the audience.
It seems like the world the world becomes more organized, much more controlled, and it looks like all disciplines and all areas of our existence is pretty much related to organized, controlled, manipulated, sold, showed, and so on. And the art world is kind of, in a sense, an image of what the world is. And some of the events and spectacles are pretty much this mirror image of what the control, manipulation, selling, and more consumption. And the question would be, if you had these magic powers and you really wanted to change the art world itself, that is really corrupted, is really based on the wars, not really progressive rules. So the question is, if you thought about John Dewey, for example, or some other thinkers who were thinking a little bit more about the art experience and not art consumption. So if you had those powers, few words about what would you like to change? Thank you.
you want to start?
I can't start. I have to think.
You have to think.
Okay, if I would have a power like this, I would probably change my occupation. I would start to. No, I'm of course. Thank you for this question. It's really important. I just don't know the answer, but and I don't want to I would change my occupation. I would be a collector, probably. Yeah, that's my dream, actually. You know how great it is. Yes, you're right that the art market is an image of it's an awkward image of the general trends and reality. Somehow, it is exception, but also it illustrates a lot. You are right. I would surely provide artists health insurance. Maybe even I would I would just pay them, right, for the work they do.
Super.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to have the power. If I would have the power, I would retreat, because if you have the power, no, it doesn't make sense. So I wouldn't want to have the power, because we are right. If you have the power, you can do all the good things. But no, power is, in my opinion, would be negative. I don't want it. So I would retreat.
Yeah. Now I'm like left as the last one after this no power talk. but if I would have this power, So I'm thinking about two things actually. Like recently in my work, or when I'm like in my country in Latvia again, and or also looking at what is happening in other countries, and really thinking of like what is that role of art in all this political situation and everything that is changing, and ecological disaster and everything that we are faced and that we have no idea how to react to. And I'm wondering whether there is a way somehow, like, and that is this one side, how art can, not only be this consumed thing, but actually really intervene or interfere or be more part of our lives, of our educations, of our understandings of the world. Because like for me, it seems like that really helped me to understand things about the world. So it may as well for, I don't know, someone else, for some politicians, or, so that kind of very utopian idea that like, and that, and then the insides of it, indeed we have a lot of talk about like how, we need to pay the artists, we need to take care. There's all that, and then in the end it doesn't really happen. But I'm thinking, and then there's this idea that maybe it's generational, that kind of generations can change that just by being more aware of like, because I remember also when I started to work in the art field like maybe 10 years ago, it was not clear of the fees, like, oh, do we pay artists the fee or not? And then in the time of my work, this very small thing changes. And then I'm like, yeah, it is possible that something's changed. It's a very small thing, like that like also for existing work, you pay a fee to the artist. And then I think like that all those things maybe which we wish for can actually be achieved. But of course, it's very difficult, and it includes much more larger structures.
Thank you for this fantastic panel. First thing I wanted to say, because this is what Gabrysia is asking, what did I say? Like at 11, so I said that Warsaw is exceptional, and it's kind of phenomenon, okay? The scene, and this is, so this is for you, Gabrysia. I think that this is very interesting, like a continuation of what we had. And the one thing is that, for example, for Osman, this is incredible to have his collection started so early. So this is like saying to your family, like a kind of apology. You should be like telling them, now you can sell it very costly. This was a fantastic time, you know, to buy these things. And now it's a bit different, but still this Polish art was a very good investment in a way also, like, and you can see the change in art, but also in the art market, because this is the context for today's talks. With Michał, we were kind of having fun, because this is this Polish gloom that we discussed, that this is the guy who won the prize today, and he's like he's like saying that, you know, that it's not so good, it won't be better, and so on. But this is the typical successful Polish galleries who just won the major prize of Warsaw Gallery Weekend. And I have a specific question to Inga, because Inga is coming from Riga, which is also, and now she's like coming like here and there between commuting between New York and Riga and so on. But basically, I remember my first visit when we met, and this was like a disaster in Riga, and she was running the as a curator survival kit kind of project that was very interesting, because it was about to survive. Like really, they were trying hard to survive, and the scene was like without any kind of help and no money at all. So she was like one of the curators who were trying to rebuild this this scene in a way from the scratch. But then was another moment when Riboka came to the town and changed the local scene like immediately. And for me it was very interesting, because this is something that we can imagine that would happen in Warsaw, like out of a sudden have a big biennale which is very international, inviting, you know, international curators, artists, and then have like a different context, for example, also for the for what we are talking about, like with this, you know, development into this more international direction. But to my like great surprise, the people in Riga, or the arts in Riga, was very disappointed that this Riboka arrived and changed the rules and changed everything. So could you like tell us about how it looked like and how this Riga art scene developed from this local to regional without having this like moment like in between that we have here, for example, with Warsaw Gallery Weekend and other developments?
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, I think indeed, yeah, Survival Kit Festival, it kind of already now survives for the 12th year, you know, it is, and it hasn't changed, and it kind of like became more professional and more international in a sense, but also it always looks at the region, but also maybe sometimes because it has simply doesn't have the money to bring someone from Latin America or Southeast Asia. It just has to look at the region, you know, because this is where you can physically ship some things from. And but of course also it's this idea. And then Riboka also, they came with a very regional focus. They said Latvia, Baltics, Central Eastern Europe, the world. And that was set there, and they always do that, you know. That's so then yeah, but the thing is that, for instance, it wasn't very well accepted in the beginning because there is this thing, like, I mean, it was presented to us as a gift, and but no one asked if we wanted that gift, and we had to be thankful. And as a person, like doing, you know, like things in the local scene, you're like, okay, but what will happen? So because they come with this money from Russia, with a huge amount of money, being able to do really the PR that we never dreamed of, and the productions that we never dreamed of. So in that sense, like, and okay, in the first year they don't ask money to the local institutions, because they were like, that was the idea, like local funders. In the second one, they're like, okay, look what we did for you. Like, you were in New York Times with the money that we invested, and now give us some money, the city, the state. And this is like, okay, yeah, maybe because they did these things, they deserve that money. But for them, this like 30 or 40 or 50,000 would mean that they take would mean that, oh, but then some local initiative cannot happen. And it's true, maybe in that world where we live in, maybe that local initiative doesn't have to happen. Maybe it's true, like, let's give this money to this Riboka because they have this private backing, really strong, you know, family money. And then they raise a bit here and there, take a bit from, let's say, it could be also that money that you know, before was designed for survival kit, now Ribocca takes it and survival kit ceases to exist. It could totally be that. But I think for me it was more like that it can exist, but that arrival of Ribocca and that thing that they did so successfully, because of course I was also happy in the end, you know, because everyone came internationally, they shipped people in, and everyone now thinks that, oh, like we need to come to Riga during Ribocca, and of course I profit from that because I'm there and I can make my, you know, networking also. So it's like, but like the fact that how they did it and what they did actually shows that the scene capacity of the local art scene in relation to the state and to the city, that in those many years they couldn't have done it. And I'm like, yeah, so maybe it's just like a disappointment in what was there or what is there like without that Ribocca, you know? So maybe it's more like that resistance, of course, comes from, as I said, these kind of very practical reasons that I feel like, okay, then they will interfere in our like funding system. But at the same time, it just shows how like fragile that other things are, and how like state and Riga hasn't ever realized that maybe they should have supported Survival Kit with a bit more money, and Survival Kit could have also become that kind of biennial, that kind of Ribocca. But they would like starve those institutions so that they exist, but they're always a bit hungry instead of making them flourish. So I think, you know, and then you come and someone flourishes, but with an outside money. And then, of course, yeah, but at the same time, it's now become like an integral part of the local scene. And we are actually happy.
Hello. I just want to maybe add a point of view from the artists, because there is no artist here, and share my small experience, what I know. I used to be very close to Basel, and I used to live in Basel in Switzerland, where Art Basel happens, the most important European or world art fair. And I used to know many Basel local artists, and they really hate still the Art Basel, the time, because they're almost never included. And the galleries, the local galleries, there are only, I think, 3, or Stampa is always there, just a few or 2 or 3 galleries from Basel that are part of Art Basel, and some more at least, but never mind. The artists from Basel are very jealous and very unhappy when Art Basel happens. Some even leave the country or the town. And the same, Berlin is different. I know Berlin as well. I used to live in Berlin, and it's very international. No one is really jealous. I mean, artists are always jealous, but no one is really actively angry, like in Basel case. And therefore, I want to say, well, if the Warsaw Gallery Weekend started to be more international, probably the Polish and Warsaw Polish artists that have this wonderful opportunity to be visible and to be visible and seen, they would simply be jealous, angry, and they would start thinking of creating maybe something against it, you know. I know the way artists think, because I'm a daughter of 2 artists and I'm an artist myself. There is this competition, which is of course the bad side, the most terrible part of it, but it's a human nature, I suppose. So I just wanted to share that. I forgot there was one more case of art market, but I forgot. That it happens in many places where there is a huge. Oh, Kassel. Yes, I forgot. Sorry. I also used to know more people from Kassel, like artists, and they were also very stressed, angry, and jealous when Documenta happened. And never included, because why would they be? I mean, you know, there are so many artists, and they have to be chosen, but an artist never understands this really well. Everybody thinks that they should be included. So it's just like a warning, you know, just Just a thought. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with Adam. I'm a grumpy person. So I think disappointment is generally describes my condition, right? And I'm pretty sure most of artists are disappointed. I wouldn't cry about artists based in Basel, right? They live in Switzerland. Additionally, neighboring space to Art Basel buildings, there is each year by year opening the same weekend or the same day, something like Swiss Art Awards, right? Which are really generous. Because maybe I'm not perfectly right, but it's a group of 40 artists, and they all receive this award, right? This is the award in Switzerland. So if you are included in a Swiss Arts Award, you are a winner. So, and you compared Warsaw to Basel and to Kassel, which cannot be compared. I wouldn't. I disagree. None of us said that we should make in Warsaw something similar to Art Basel, right? I agree with you partly, but I just wanted to refer to some points I disagree.
I think that the point what Paula said is that if you have a very strong art scene in Poland, why aim international? That's the point, and I think in one way she's right. Why look always across the board? It's not a national thinking. It's just you have a very strong local scene. You have a very strong art scene. You have strong artists. So why not show them? Why always try to be international? I don't get the point in this.
Yeah, but this is what we are doing. I mean, private galleries. I'm pretty sure each of artists we presented at Warsaw Gallery Weekend for past 10 years would prefer to be presented individually in Basel on the art fair booths, right? We are taking them abroad.
Yeah, like to respond first to your comment, why to look internationally or why to think about the international scene. It's just like, yeah, exactly. It may be very strong local scene, and it's not exclusive nationalism that we are thinking of. I'm really sure. I'm just thinking that, first of all, let's acknowledge this internationalism or this diversity within Warsaw that exists already, and like like artists from Belarus and Ukraine and different backgrounds. And then I think it makes the scene. Diversity and international exchange simply makes the scene better. It makes the local scene more strong, because you can make this local scene stronger if it is in constant dialogue and in exchange. Like, that's my view. So and also to respond to you about these artists. Actually, I really agree. Like, that's also the question also that Adam asked me about. Riga Biennial, which was in the beginning perceived as something like Manifesta landing or like something landing. Now it's like very local, like it embedded itself. And then and first, local institutions were, not happy. Local curators were not happy that they're not curating it. Why local curators never curate? So I speak from the curatorial perspective, but this is a very similar situation. But I think there should be some balance, and we've seen so many of those examples which are not working, and maybe they're continuing something that doesn't work and that always upset people. But we can also learn from the bad experiences. It's just important to acknowledge that and maybe to do it differently.
Yeah, I think maybe we should be wrapping up, but I think there is a space for one more question. But I also wanted to, I just wanted to comment very briefly that I agree with Inga. I mean, the exchange and dialogue is what the Polish art scene really needs. And the Polish artists really need to be exposed more to what's going on abroad, because it will also enrich what they do and how they do it. And I think, very often when it comes to discussing individual works or shows, even from this edition, we ended up not doing it, but we can do it afterwards. Is what sometimes is a weakness, this lack of broader perspective. I mean, great ideas, but lack of broader perspective a little bit. But maybe, is there any more questions? Are there any more questions? Yes.
Hi, I'm an academic. I'm from India and I live in America, so I should sort of say. And I'm right now writing on moving image practices, and I'm in Warsaw, so this is all very exciting for me. So, so as an academic, the person who's writing, the art writing, is the person who's missing, but you've got books on the table, right? So that's the reference to the book. And as an academic, we're always a little behind the curatorial enterprise. We think of ourselves as post hoc curators. I mean, I think of myself as a post hoc curator. So there's a way in which, in response to the question of accumulation and the art market, right, which is very, very big for the art market, which I take for granted because I want artists to be recognized, I want their work to go on, so there is that. But at the same time, if there is no art writing, if there's no writing of art and art writing, which are different but similar, then I don't understand how one can have a flourishing space, because it's always going to be, it's one thing that is belated, it is not future. It doesn't have any speed to it. Academic writing is so slow. Mm-hmm. It keeps pace with artwork in a way. So I'm curious about the kind of, what would one call, the third arm here, because you've got the artists, you've got the curators, etc., right? But the particular form of art writing, which also needs to flourish, whether it's online, magazines and journals, right alongside other forms of writing. So there is that. And I also want to respond to Inga's several points, which were great. I was thinking of the term cosmopolitan, right, rather than local and regional. And I hate traveling. I cannot stand traveling. I mean, and I'm here, right? I keep saying I hate traveling. I actually just want to walk 15 minutes every day, and I want everything to be just in that space. And that's enough for me. That's my world. And wherever I go, that's all. I hate the idea of moving around, etc. So I think, but I don't think of myself as being local. I think, of course, I'm local because I know the person who's selling figs. But I also think of it as the charge of the cosmopolitan, not to move. It's actually counterintuitive. It's not to move. It's not the idea of moving all the time, right? It's about sort of knowing at least 5 languages and living in one place, right? And just knowing that. So anyway, the big question really is, which I wanted to say, sort of I really like that point, is the question of art writing. And if you don't mind telling the outsider, who's a double outsider, what the status of writing is, because I feel like that's the big part of it, right? Okay, thank you.
Do you want to?
Maybe you're the expert with this.
Yeah, you're.
I think it's in a crisis. I don't, but you probably know about this, and I'm here to say something like this, right? Yeah. But Adam has a more experience. I'm a receiver of art criticism, and I starve to read more and to hear more art criticism about what we are showing, about artists whom we are showing. This is you are right, but you are opening. Right now, we are opening up the next chapter for like an hour, right? Yes, I'm sure you were. Yeah, it's not good about when we speak about art writing in Poland. There is lack of it.
Yeah, the most magazines.
Yeah, there is lack of it, but at least I can, coming from somewhere else, I can name at least a few, right? So Block magazine that Adam Mazur is running, and that's even in English. So it's like giving this, and it's regional perspective, so it talks about the Baltics and Central Eastern Europe, and magazine Szum, which is in Polish. But maybe indeed that's the only one, and maybe indeed for a country of the size of Poland, there should be more, and maybe there should be more also in 2 languages like English and Polish. Yeah.
Well, It would be, in fact, another hour to discuss this topic. I don't know how to really wrap it up at this point because, yes, there could be more writing, but there are so many aspects and issues related to that. I mean, starting with, that the scene being, big enough that there is something to really write about, but small enough that it creates so many issues. It's just everybody knows everybody. There is no real criticism. It's just the commentary. That's the art writing in Poland, in my opinion. Adam disagrees. Adam wants to say something.
Yeah. Adam wants to comment.
Well, I just wanted to say that the artists are writing. So Zuza Bartoszek is a super interesting poet, and she's also writing other things. And your right hand, Vera Załuckaya, is also running a magazine specifically publishing content concerning, the expats living in artists.
Foreign artists living in Poland.
Yeah, living in Poland, which is actually kind of interesting, like a closure for this discussion, I guess, because this is, if there is no writing, then the artists start to write and start to communicate with the outside world. So I guess it's not an issue that would be that bad, or like I can say that it's really optimistic that the artists are somehow maneuvering the criticism and start to communicate what they want to communicate with the outside world. Yeah. And Vera will be taking over blog, which is also kind of news, and we are working on that. So it will be even more.
It does become official. I mean, maybe that's too early, but yes, that's the plan. I think, we exceeded the time we're given. So thank you very, very much. I hope we'll continue this interesting discussion later on. We had some. At one point, I was a little worried that we are agreeing too much. But I could. that is always. A risk of such discussion, but I think in the end you have very opposite position on what the future should be, and that's a lesson for us. We don't need to come up with any, conclusion. I think it's the point where we will be just reflecting of what we just said. And thank you very much once again, and thank you for being with us. And please. The galleries are still open. There are many interesting things in the Warsaw Gallery Weekend program, so please continue. Thank you.